"Your mother is alive, I saw her at the nursing home," shouted the street kid to the millionaire at the funeral. Harrison Reed felt the weight of grief tighten his chest as he watched the coffin that supposedly carried the remains of his mother, Mrs. Evelyn. 3 years had passed since he received the news of her passing, and now he had finally managed to organize a dignified ceremony at Graceland Cemetery in Chicago. It was then that a desperate shout cut through the solemn silence of the June morning. A boy of no more than 12, with wavy hair and worn-out clothes, burst among the mourners like an unexpected storm. "Your mother is alive!" cried Caleb, his brown eyes shining with urgent tears. "I saw her at the county nursing home. She's alive, sir." Harrison froze. The boy's words echoed through the cemetery like stones hitting glass. The family members present exchanged uncomfortable glances, some whispering about the indecency of the situation. "Who is this child?" murmured Victoria, Harrison's wife, nervously adjusting her black couture gown. "Call security immediately." But Caleb would not be intimidated. With the determination of someone who fights for survival every day, he grabbed Harrison's arm with surprising strength. "Please, sir, listen to me," he pleaded, his voice hoarse from so much shouting on the streets. "Mrs. Evelyn is there at the nursing home. She always talks about the son who became a businessman, who built buildings all over the city." "It's you, right? It has to be." Harrison felt the world spin around him. Evelyn. That was indeed his mother's name. But how could that street kid know? His mother had passed away 3 years ago. He had the documents, he had paid for the funeral, or at least he thought he had. "You are lying," Harrison replied with a trembling voice, trying to convince himself more than the boy. "My mother passed away. I have the death certificate." Caleb shook his head fervently, tears now streaming freely down his thin face. "No, sir, she's alive. She always tells how you were tiny and afraid of thunder, how she used to sing that song." The boy began to hum an old melody, a lullaby that Harrison recognized instantly. The businessman felt his legs weaken. That song. Only his mother knew it. It was a tune she had invented especially for him when he was a child, in the hard times when they lived on the outskirts of Chicago, before he built his real estate empire. "How do you know that song?" whispered Harrison, his voice almost inaudible. "She sings it every night before bed," Caleb answered, wiping his nose with the sleeve of his faded shirt. "She says she sings it for the son who will one day come back to get her, that he's just busy building houses for others." The silence that followed was deafening. The guests began to stir, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. Victoria, her face red with embarrassment, pulled her husband by the arm. "Harrison, this is ridiculous. Let's finish the ceremony and send this boy away. He's causing a terrible scene." But Harrison couldn't stop looking at Caleb. There was something in those desperate eyes, a raw truth that hit him like a punch in the stomach. The boy had no reason to lie. He didn't know the family, had nothing to gain from it. Where do you say she is?" asked Harrison, ignoring the disapproving looks from the family. "At the county nursing home over in East St. Louis," Caleb answered quickly, as if fearing Harrison would change his mind. "I work there, sir. I clean the rooms, help in the kitchen, do anything to earn a plate of food. Mrs. Evelyn has always been kind to me, gives me sweets when she has them, tells me stories." "This is absurd!" exploded Victoria. "Harrison, you are not going to listen to this street kid. Look at the scandal this has already become." Indeed, some guests were already taking photos with their cell phones, whispering among themselves about the strange interruption. Harrison could imagine the headlines in the local newspapers the next day. His reputation, so carefully built over decades, was being shaken by a barefoot boy in the city's most elegant cemetery. But then Caleb said something that changed everything. "She always says you must be angry with her for selling the little house where you lived. That's why you never visited again. But she needed to sell it, sir. You really weren't sending money, and she was going hungry." Harrison felt the blood run cold in his veins. The little house. His mother had sold the small house on the outskirts where he grew up, and when he found out years ago, he was furious. He accused her of wastefulness, of not knowing how to wait, of not trusting that he would take care of her when he was able. It was the last argument they had before he stopped visiting her. How could that boy know this? "Sir," Caleb continued, sensing he had touched a nerve, She keeps a photo of you on the nightstand, a graduation photo. She shows it to everyone, says her son is a sir, that he has a big company. But she always cries afterward because you never show up." Harrison's legs finally gave way, and he leaned on a nearby headstone. The graduation photo. He had given it to his mother years ago when he graduated in civil engineering. It was the only professional photo he had at the time. Victoria realized she was losing control of the situation and urgently approached her husband. "Harrison, for God's sake, let's go. This boy is clearly unstable. He probably saw the photo in some newspaper and made up this story to get money." But Harrison was no longer listening to his wife. His mind went back 3 years in time when he received the phone call from Mr. Sterling, the administrator of the nursing home where he had placed his mother after a series of family arguments. Sterling had been polite, professional, explaining that Mrs. Evelyn had passed away in her sleep, without suffering. He had sent all the necessary documents, including the death certificate. Harrison never questioned it. In fact, he felt a guilty relief. His mother had always been stubborn, criticized his choices, couldn't adapt to the lifestyle he wanted to offer. Victoria never could stand her, constantly complained about having to receive the poor old woman at home. "I want to see those documents again," murmured Harrison, more to himself than to anyone else. "What?" Victoria couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Harrison, are you really considering listening to this street kid?" Caleb, sensing the businessman's hesitation, stepped closer again. "Sir, I swear on my mother's soul, who died when I was 5. Mrs. Evelyn is alive. She treats me like a son, you know. She teaches me to read, tells me about her life when you were little. She says you like to play at building little houses with shoeboxes." Another precise memory. Harrison really did that as a child, building little houses with any material he could find. His mother always encouraged him, said he would be a great builder when he grew up. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The ceremony had become a silent chaos. The guests awaited a decision from Harrison, torn between embarrassment and morbid curiosity. The priest, an elderly man who had known the family for years, discreetly approached. "Mr. Harrison, perhaps it would be best to conclude the ceremony for today. We can reschedule when the situation is more clarified." Harrison nodded mechanically, but his mind was elsewhere. If his mother were really alive, if he had spent 3 years believing she was dead while she wasted away in a nursing home, waiting for his visit. The guilt he had always carried in his chest, masked by the convenience of her supposed death, now turned into pure panic. What if Caleb was right? What if it was all just an elaborate hoax? "Caleb," said Harrison, finally using the boy's name, "can you take me to this nursing home?" "Of course, sir." The boy's eyes lit up with hope. "I can take you right now if you want. It's kind of far, but I know the bus route." Victoria stepped between her husband and the boy, her expression furious. "Harrison Reed, if you leave this cemetery with this kid, I'm going straight home to pack my bags. This is ridiculous, embarrassing, and totally unacceptable." Harrison looked at his wife, then at Caleb, and finally at the coffin that was supposed to contain his mother. The doubt that had sprouted in his heart now grew like a weed, choking any attempt at logic. "Victoria, I need to be sure." "Sure of what? You have the death certificate. You paid for the funeral 3 years ago. This is madness." "And what if it's not madness?" Harrison turned to her, his voice heavy with an anguish that came from a long time ago. "What if I spent 3 years living a lie while my mother was alive, waiting for me?" The argument between the couple drew even more attention from those present. Caleb, realizing he was causing trouble, tried to slip away, but Harrison held him by the shoulder. "Don't go, please. Sir, I don't want to cause a fight in your family. I just wanted you to know your mom is alive. She suffers a lot, you know. She always asks why her son never visits." Those words were like knives in Harrison's chest. He remembered his last conversations with his mother, always tense, always full of mutual recriminations. She complained about his absence. He complained about her insistence. It was easier to pay for the nursing home and visit rarely than to deal with the complexity of that relationship. I'm going there, Harrison decided abruptly. Caleb, you come with me. Victoria, you can go home. I need to sort this out. If you leave here now chasing this crazy lie, when you come back you won't find me or your things in the house, threatened Victoria, her voice low but full of venom. And everyone here will know that Harrison Reed is a man who believes street boys more than his own family. The silence that followed was heavy as lead. Harrison looked around and saw the expectant faces of family, friends, and business partners. His reputation, his business, his social life, everything depended on the impression he made at that moment. But then he looked at Caleb, who awaited his decision with eyes full of hope and fear. A boy who had absolutely nothing to gain from that situation, who had risked being thrown out and mistreated to bring him information he thought was important. Caleb, said Harrison, making the decision that would change his life forever. Take me to see my mother. The reaction was immediate. Victoria let out a cry of indignation and began to walk away, proclaiming to anyone who would listen that her husband had lost his mind. Some family members tried to intervene. Others began to murmur among themselves about the scandal. Harrison ignored everyone and everything. He took Caleb by the hand and began walking toward the cemetery gate, leaving behind not only the supposed funeral of his mother, but the entire life he had built based on appearances and conveniences. The journey to the county nursing home in East St. Louis was long and silent. Harrison drove his black high-end luxury sedan through the streets of Chicago, while Caleb, huddled in the passenger seat, gave directions in a low voice. The contrast between the two was stark. The businessman in his expensive designer-tailored suit and the street kid in his patched-up clothes. "Sir," Caleb broke the silence as they neared their destination, "Mr. Sterling doesn't like it when I talk to the residents' families. If he sees me with you, he'll throw me out." "Why do you work at the nursing home?" asked Harrison, genuinely curious about the boy's story. Caleb shrugged, looking out the window at the simple houses in the neighborhood. "My mom died when I was 5. I never knew my father. I stayed with relatives here and there, but they always kicked me out when food got scarce. On the streets, it's hard to get food every day. At the home, if I help with cleaning and don't bother anyone, sometimes there's a plate left for me." The simplicity with which Caleb told his story of abandonment and survival contrasted brutally with Harrison's concerns about reputation and social status. That boy knew a struggle for survival the businessman had never experienced. "And my mother, is she kind to you?" asked Harrison, feeling a strange pang in his chest. "Mrs. Evelyn is the nicest person I've ever met," Caleb replied with touching sincerity. "She always shares her dessert with me when she has some, teaches me new words, tells me stories about your childhood. She says you were very smart, that she always knew you'd grow up and be successful." Harrison swallowed hard. His mother had always believed in him, even during the hardest times of his poor childhood. When others doubted, when he himself doubted, she was there, steadfast in her unshakable faith that her son would become someone important. And how had he repaid that faith? By abandoning her in a nursing home and disappearing from her life. "That's the street," pointed Caleb, pulling Harrison from his dark thoughts. "The entrance is down at the end." The Hope Municipal Care Center was an old, poorly maintained building with peeling walls and a small garden that clearly hadn't been tended to in a long time. Harrison parked out front and sat for a few seconds observing the facade, trying to gather the courage to enter. "Are you nervous, sir?" asked Caleb, noticing the hesitation. "Very," admitted Harrison. "If she's really there, if it's true, I don't even know what I'll say." Caleb encouraged him with a sad smile. "Mrs. Evelyn always says a mother's love forgives everything, that no matter how much time passes, if her son shows up, she'll welcome him with open arms." Those words gave Harrison the strength he needed to get out of the car. Together they walked to the entrance of the home, where a drowsy receptionist barely looked up from a magazine. "I'm here to visit Evelyn Reed," said Harrison, trying to keep his voice steady. "Name doesn't ring a bell," murmured the receptionist, lazily flipping through a logbook. "Are you sure she's here?" Caleb approached the desk, recognizing the staff member. "Hi, Mrs. Gladys. It's the lady in room 15, the one who likes to knit." "Oh, Evelyn," the woman finally seemed to remember. Of course, Mr. Sterling isn't here, but you can go see her. Room 15, corridor on the left. Harrison's heart raced. She was really there. His mother was alive. The corridor of the home smelled of disinfectant and sadness. The walls were painted a faded green, and the sound of footsteps echoed eerily. Caleb led the way, discreetly waving to some elderly residents he recognized. When they reached the front of room 15, Harrison hesitated again. Through the small window in the door, he could see a female figure sitting in a rocking chair, knitting something blue. It was her. Even from a distance, even with hair now completely white and a body more fragile, he immediately recognized his mother's posture, the delicate way her fingers handled the knitting needles. "Mrs. Evelyn," Caleb gently knocked on the door. "You have a visitor." The woman looked up from her knitting and smiled upon seeing the boy. "Caleb, my dear, you're back already? I thought you wouldn't appear until tonight." "I brought someone to meet you," said Caleb, gently pushing Harrison into the room. Evelyn Reed looked at the man in the tailored suit entering her small room and remained silent for a few seconds, studying his face. Then her hands began to tremble, and the knitting fell to the floor. "Harrison," she whispered, as if seeing a ghost. "My son?" "Mother," was all Harrison could manage before his legs buckled. The reunion was devastating. Evelyn rose from her chair with difficulty, her trembling legs barely able to support her fragile body. But her eyes shone with a mixture of joy and disbelief. "You came," she whispered, extending her trembling hands to touch her son's face. "After so long, you came to see me." Harrison knelt before his mother's chair, allowing her to touch his face as if verifying he was real. Her hands, marked by age and work, traced his features with tenderness. "Mother, I thought you had... They told me you had... died?" Evelyn completed with a bitter smile. "I know, my son. I know they told you that. Sometimes I think I did die. I died the day you stopped coming to see me." Guilt hit Harrison like an avalanche. He remembered the last months before believing his mother had passed away. The visits had become increasingly rare, always with excuses about work, about unavoidable commitments. "I'm so sorry, Mother. I'm truly sorry." Evelyn stroked her son's hair, now with some grey strands she didn't know. "You've grown so much, Harrison. You look so handsome, so elegant. I always knew you'd be someone important in life." Caleb, who was watching the reunion from the corner of the room, was moved to see tears in both their eyes. This was the reunion he had dreamed of providing since he met Mrs. Evelyn and heard her stories about her absent son. "How did you know I was here?" asked Evelyn, still not fully believing her son was there. Harrison looked at Caleb, who smiled timidly. "Caleb told me. He found me at the cemetery today." "At the cemetery?" Evelyn seemed confused. "What cemetery, my son?" The question left Harrison embarrassed. How to explain to his mother that he had organized a funeral for her, that he had spent 3 years believing she was dead? "Mother, Mr. Sterling called me 3 years ago saying you had passed away. He sent documents, a death certificate. I organized a funeral." The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn slowly processed her son's words, her expression changing from joy to a painful understanding. "So that's why," she murmured, more to herself. "That's why you never came again. You thought I was dead." "Mother, I swear if I had known—" "No, my son," Evelyn interrupted him, her voice laden with a deep sadness. "You didn't know because you didn't want to know. When was the last time you called me, asked how I was, came to see me without being obligated?" The raw truth of his mother's words hit Harrison like knife wounds. He knew she was right. Even before believing in her death, he had practically abandoned her. The supposed death had merely formalized an abandonment that already existed. Caleb, sensing the tension in the air, approached Mrs. Evelyn. "Mrs. Evelyn, Mr. Harrison came here in a rush when I told him you were alive. He left everything behind to come see you." "That's true, Caleb." Evelyn stroked the boy's hair, "and I am very grateful for that. It's just that it's hard, you know, spending 3 years thinking your only son had completely forgotten you." "I never forgot you, Mom," Harrison said, holding her hands. "Not for a single day. I was lost. Building a life I thought was important, but in the end, it meant nothing. Evelyn studied her son's face for long seconds before speaking again. Are you married, Harrison? Yes, Mom, to Victoria. Do you remember her? Evelyn's face closed off slightly. I remember. The young lady who didn't like coming here, who was always in a hurry to leave when you visited me. Harrison didn't know how to respond. Victoria had indeed always shown discomfort during the rare visits to the nursing home, complaining about the smell, the sadness of the place, the depression she felt seeing so many abandoned elderly people. She must be worried about you, Evelyn continued, leaving your own commitment like this to come see me. Caleb and Harrison exchanged looks. The boy knew the businessman's wife hadn't reacted well to his decision to go to the nursing home, but he preferred not to comment. Mom, tell me something. Harrison changed the subject. How did this story about the death certificate happen? Evelyn took a deep breath, as if gathering strength to tell something difficult. 3 years ago, Mr. Sterling came to talk to me. He said you were very busy with your business, that you were having financial difficulties and couldn't pay the nursing home fees anymore. Harrison was astonished. That was a lie. He had never had financial problems and always paid the fees on time. He proposed an arrangement, his mother continued. He said if I officially passed away, he could keep receiving the payments you made, but I could stay here as a sort of ghost. No family, no visits, but with a roof and food guaranteed. The revelation left Harrison stunned. Sterling had been stealing his money for 3 years, keeping his mother alive while pretending she had died. Mom, why did you accept this? Evelyn smiled sadly. Because I knew that if you found out I was alive, but still didn't come visit me, I would really die. At least this way I could pretend you weren't coming because you thought I wasn't here anymore. The painful logic of his mother's choice devastated Harrison. She had preferred to live a lie than face the reality of his abandonment. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. And Caleb, asked Harrison, trying to understand the whole situation. How did you two meet? Ah, Caleb. Evelyn smiled for the first time since the conversation had begun. He showed up here about 6 months ago. He was starving on the street, begging for food at the kitchen. The cook was going to throw him out, but I asked them to let him stay. Caleb lowered his head, ashamed. I was really hungry, Mrs. Evelyn. I hadn't eaten properly in 3 days. And since then he's become my little angel, Evelyn continued, stroking the boy's face. He keeps me company, helps me with heavy things, listens to my stories about you when you were little. She taught me to read better too, Caleb added. Before I only knew some basic words. Now I can already read the book she borrows from the nursing home library. Harrison watched the interaction between his mother and the street boy, realizing something that deeply disturbed him. Caleb had offered his mother exactly what he, the biological son, had denied: companionship, affection, attention. A boy without a family had become more family to his mother than he himself was. Mrs. Evelyn always talks about you, said Caleb, noticing Harrison's inner conflict. Every night before going to sleep, she takes the photo from your graduation and tells some story from when you were little. She says you were very brave, that you protected her from the mean neighbors. Caleb, murmured Evelyn, embarrassed. No, it's right for him to speak, said Harrison. I need to know. I need to understand what I've lost all these years. Evelyn took her son's hand in hers. You haven't lost anything that can't be recovered, my dear. We are here, we are alive, we have time. That's all that matters now. But Harrison knew it wasn't that simple. 3 years of abandonment couldn't be erased with a conversation. The pain he had caused his mother, the guilt he would carry forever, the consequences of his choices, all of it was still there, weighing on them. Mum, I want to get you out of here. I want to take you home, give you the care you deserve. What home, Harrison? Asked Evelyn gently. Your home? The one you share with Victoria? The simple question exposed the complexity of the situation. Harrison knew that Victoria would never accept having her mother-in-law living with them. In fact, after the scene at the cemetery, he didn't even know if he'd still have a wife when he got back home. "I'll figure it out, Mom. I'll find a good house for you, with nurses, with everything you need." "And Caleb?" asked Evelyn, surprising them both. "What do you mean? If I leave here, what will happen to Caleb? He has nowhere to go. He lives off the charity of the kitchen here." Harrison looked at the boy, who was trying to make himself invisible in the corner of the room. He hadn't thought of that. In fact, he hadn't thought about Caleb beyond being the bearer of the news about his mother. I can help find a place for him. An orphanage. A foster home." "I don't want to go to an orphanage," said Caleb quietly. "I've been in one before. They hit us, the food is bad, the bigger boys steal our things." "Caleb stays with me," declared Evelyn firmly. "If you want to help me, Harrison, you help us both. Caleb is my family now too." His mother's declaration created a new dilemma for Harrison. How to explain to Victoria, to society, to his acquaintances, that his mother had adopted a street boy. How to make that work in practice. But looking at the two of them, his elderly mother and the abandoned boy who had become family to each other, Harrison felt something he hadn't felt in a long time, a moral clarity that transcended social concerns. "Then the three of us will leave here together," he decided. "I'll rent a good house, hire caregivers for Mom, and Caleb will study in a real school." The boy's eyes widened. "School? I can go to a school?" "You can and you will," affirmed Harrison. "But first I need to sort some things out, mainly with this Mr. Sterling." Evelyn gripped her son's arm tightly. "Harrison, don't get into trouble with him. The man is not trustworthy. He could harm Caleb if he finds out it was him who told you about me." "He won't harm anyone," said Harrison, his voice carrying a determination he hadn't felt in years. "First, I'll get you both out of here, then I'll settle accounts with whoever I need to settle with." During the next hour, Harrison mentally organized what he needed to do. He would have to rent a house quickly, hire caregivers, resolve Caleb's legal situation, face Victoria and her threats, and deal with the social and professional consequences of the scandal at the cemetery. But for now, he just wanted to stay there, in the small room 15 of the county nursing home, listening to his mother tell Caleb stories about his childhood, seeing the boy's eyes shine with curiosity, feeling for the first time in years that he was exactly where he should be. When it began to get dark, Harrison realized he needed to leave. Not to return to his previous life, but to start building a new one. "Mom, Caleb, I'm leaving now, but I'll be back tomorrow. I'll come back every day until I can get you out of here." "Are you sure, my son?" asked Evelyn. "This will change your life completely. Your wife, your business, your social standing." "My life has already changed, Mom. It changed the moment Caleb shouted at the cemetery that you were alive. Now I just need to decide if I'm going to change for the better or for the worse." Caleb approached timidly. "Sir Harrison, are you sure you want to take me with you? I don't want to cause trouble for your family." Harrison knelt to the boy's height and looked him in the eyes. "Caleb, you saved my family today. If it weren't for your courage, I would have buried an empty casket while my mother died alone in this place. You are a hero, not a burden." The boy smiled for the first time since they'd met, a wide, genuine smile that lit up his thin face. When Harrison finally left the nursing home, it was the dead of night. During the drive back home, he couldn't stop thinking about the last few hours. His life had been turned upside down by a 12-year-old boy who had the courage to shout a truth nobody wanted to hear. Arriving at his luxury condominium, Harrison wasn't surprised to see the house lights were off. Victoria had made good on her threat to pack her bags. A note on the kitchen counter confirmed his fears. "Harrison, I've gone to my sister's house. I'm not coming back until you come to your senses and stop this madness. I will wait until the end of the week for a public retraction about what happened today. Otherwise, my lawyer will be in touch." Victoria Harrison crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. For the first time in years, he didn't feel his stomach churn at the threat of social scandal or financial loss. He felt relief. That night, alone in his empty mansion, Harrison had the most peaceful sleep in a long time. In the morning, he woke with a strange feeling. Hope. His first call was to a real estate agent he knew, asking for a house to rent urgently. The second was to a home care agency. The third was to a lawyer specializing in adoption and guardianship. When he arrived at the nursing home the next morning, he found Caleb being thrown out by a burly man Harrison deduced was the famous Mr. Sterling. "And don't come back here, you little bum," Sterling was shouting, pushing the boy through the gates. "I told you this is no place for beggars." "Leave the boy alone," intervened Harrison, getting out of his car. Sterling turned, clearly irritated, but his expression changed completely when he recognized the well-dressed businessman. "Mr. Harrison?" he stammered, his hostility turning to nervousness. "What? How? I thought you—" "You thought I what, Sterling? That I was dead, or that my mother was dead?" The administrator's face visibly paled. He looked nervously at Caleb, then at Harrison, clearly trying to understand how the two knew each other. "Mr. Harrison, I can explain." "I'm sure you can," said Harrison coldly. "But not here. First I'm going to see my mother, then we'll talk. In your office. Alone." Caleb ran to Harrison's side, clearly relieved to have someone to protect him. "He threw me out, Mr. Harrison. Said someone told him I was talking to residents' families." "Don't worry, Caleb. No one is going to throw you out of anywhere ever again." Sterling watched them with growing apprehension, his hands visibly sweating. "Mr. Harrison, perhaps it would be better if we talked before you see Mrs. Evelyn. There are some administrative matters that need to be clarified." "The administrative matters can wait," Harrison replied curtly. "My mother can't." During the meeting with Evelyn that morning, Harrison told her about his plans for the coming days. He had found a comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood with a backyard for Caleb to play in and spaces adapted for an elderly person's needs. The caregivers would start the next day, and he had consulted a lawyer about Caleb's legal situation. "My son, are you sure you want to do all this?" asked Evelyn, touched but worried. "It's a lot of responsibility all at once." "Mother, I spent 3 years living with no responsibility toward the people who really matter. Now I want to make up for lost time." Caleb listened to everything with wide eyes, still not fully believing his life could change so drastically. "And school, Sir Harrison? Were you serious about school?" "I'm serious about everything, Caleb. I've already looked into some options. You'll study, you'll have new school supplies, a uniform, everything you need." "I've never had a school uniform," murmured Caleb dreamily. Evelyn stroked the boy's hair with maternal affection. "You'll have all that and much more, my dear. Now you have a real family." The word family echoed in the room like a promise. Harrison realized he was building something completely new, not just rescuing the relationship with his mother, but creating an unconventional family that included a street boy who had saved them all with his courage. When they left Evelyn's room, Sterling was waiting in the hallway, clearly agitated. "Sir Harrison, we need to talk urgently. There are some misunderstandings that need to be cleared up." "There is no misunderstanding, Sterling," Harrison replied calmly. "You falsified my mother's death to keep receiving payments. That's fraud." "Sir, please, let me explain." "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." Harrison accompanied Sterling to his office, a small, poorly lit room at the back of the county nursing home. The walls were covered in old files, and there was an old wooden desk covered in papers. "Have a seat," said Sterling, trying to regain some authority. "I can explain the whole situation in a way that makes sense." Harrison remained standing, observing the man coldly. "You have 5 minutes." Sterling took a deep breath, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and began his rushed explanation. "Sir Harrison, what happened was an administrative misunderstanding. 3 years ago, Mrs. Evelyn was very depressed because of the lack of family visits. She talked several times about giving up on living, you understand?" "Go on." "I thought it would be better for everyone if she had a period of, let's say, total seclusion. No contact with the outside world, no pressures. And to protect her from family inquiries about her condition, I suggested that, temporarily, she be considered deceased in the records." Harrison let the man finish his elaborate lie before responding. "And the death certificate you sent me? Was that Temporary too? Sterling swallowed dryly. It was a procedural error. I shouldn't have done that without official medical authorization. Sterling, you're lying to my face, said Harrison, his voice low but laden with threat. You forged official documents, deceived a grieving family, and stole money for 3 years. That's not a procedural error. It's a crime. Sir Harrison, please, think of the nursing home's reputation. There are dozens of families who depend on our services. If this situation comes to light, you should have thought of that before deciding to play with people's lives. Sterling rose from his chair, clearly desperate. What do you want? Money. I can return all the money I received these 3 years. I can pay interest, compensation. What I want is justice and transparency. How many other families are going through the same situation? How many other elderly are officially dead but living here as ghosts? Sterling's silence was eloquent. His shifty eyes and trembling hands revealed that the scheme involving Evelyn was not an isolated case. My God, murmured Harrison, understanding the magnitude of the situation. How many? Sir Harrison, I can explain. How many? Repeated Harrison, raising his voice. Perhaps 5 or 6 similar cases, Sterling admitted reluctantly, but all with valid medical justifications. The revelation left Harrison stunned. There were at least 5 families who, like him, believed they had lost their loved ones when in fact they were alive, abandoned, pretending to be dead to avoid embarrassment for their absent relatives. This is monstrous, Sterling. You are psychologically torturing these people. I am taking care of them, Sterling exploded. Families who dumped their elderly here and disappeared. Families who only paid the bills to not feel guilty. At least this way the elderly have peace. They aren't waiting for visits that never come. And you decide who deserves to live or die socially? I decide who deserves protection from the cruelty of their own children. The argument was intensifying when Caleb appeared at the office door, clearly worried. Sir Harrison, Mrs. Evelyn is asking if everything is okay. She heard loud voices. The boy's presence brought Harrison back to reality. That was not a fight he should wage there, at that moment. His priority was to get his mother and Caleb out of that place and ensure they were safe. Sterling, you have until the end of the day to prepare the transfer paperwork for my mother. I want everything documented correctly, with no traces of irregularities. And about the other cases? Asked Sterling nervously. We'll talk about that after my mother is safe. But I can tell you one thing. This scheme is going to end, one way or another. Sterling nodded reluctantly, realizing he had no choice in the situation. When they left the office, Caleb walked beside Harrison with curiosity. What were you two arguing about in there? Adult things, Caleb, but nothing that will affect our plans. And Mrs. Evelyn? When will she be able to leave here? Today, if possible. I'm trying to speed up the process. Caleb smiled with relief, but there was something more in his expression. Sir Harrison, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you doing all this for me? I'm just a street kid you didn't even know until yesterday. The simple question touched Harrison deeply. He stopped walking and turned to face Caleb. Caleb, you had the courage to do something I didn't have in 3 years. You took care of my mother when I abandoned her. You faced a whole ceremony of strangers to tell me a truth that could have been ignored. If anyone here deserves a better life, it's you. But I'm not your real son. Family isn't just about blood, Caleb. It's about who cares for you, who protects you, who wants to see you grow up and be happy. For the first time in my life, I know what it means to be truly responsible for someone. Caleb hugged Harrison's leg tightly, a gesture that completely disarmed the businessman. For the first time in decades, Harrison felt he was being truly useful in someone's life. For the rest of the day, Harrison divided his time between handling the bureaucratic procedures for Evelyn's transfer, resolving the legal matters concerning Caleb, and dealing with the insistent calls from Victoria and other family members demanding explanations about the events at the cemetery. With each call he answered, Harrison felt less patience to justify his actions. His priorities had completely changed, and the social pressures that once dominated him now seemed insignificant. In the late afternoon, when he finally secured all the necessary documents, Harrison returned to room 15 to pick up Evelyn and Caleb. He found the two of them organizing the elderly woman's few belongings, some simple clothes, medications, and the graduation photo of Harrison that she treasured so much. "All set, Mum. We can go." Evelyn looked around the small room that had been her home for years, a mixture of sadness and relief on her face. "You know, Harrison, I never thought I'd actually leave here alive. I'd already gotten used to the idea of being a walking ghost." "You'll never have to pretend anything again, Mom. From now on, you're going to live for real, with dignity and love." Caleb helped Evelyn rise from the chair, offering his thin arm as support. The tender gesture between them didn't go unnoticed by Harrison, who was once again moved by the genuine bond that had formed between his mother and the boy. As they were leaving the nursing home for the last time, Sterling appeared in the hallway to say goodbye, clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. "Mrs. Evelyn, I hope you'll be very happy in your new home. And, Mr. Harrison, I hope we can resolve our pending matter amicably." "We will resolve it, Sterling, but first I'm going to make sure my family is well taken care of." During the drive to the new house, which Harrison had managed to furnish quickly through business contacts, Evelyn watched the streets of Chicago through the car window as if seeing the city for the first time. "It's changed so much," she murmured. "So many new buildings, so many different stores." "I built some of those buildings, Mum. Maybe we can tour the city and I'll show you and Caleb my projects." "I'd like that very much," Evelyn replied sincerely. "I was always proud of your work, my son, even when I was upset by your absence." Caleb, in the back seat, listened to the conversation in silence, still processing all the changes happening in his life. From street kid to family member in less than 48 hours, it was a lot to take in. "Caleb, are you okay? You're very quiet," Harrison observed through the rearview mirror. "I'm just thinking," the boy replied. "Yesterday morning I woke up under the overpass, not knowing if I'd get food. Tonight I'm going to sleep in a real house, with Mrs. Evelyn, knowing I'll have breakfast tomorrow. It feels like a dream." "It's not a dream, my dear," said Evelyn, reaching back to touch the boy's knee. "It's real life. A good life, one you deserve." When they arrived at the house Harrison had rented, a single-story home in a quiet neighborhood, with 3 bedrooms, a garden, and spaces adapted for seniors, Caleb's reaction was unforgettable. The boy got out of the car and stood still in front of the gate, looking at the white-painted facade with blue details, as if it were a palace. "Is this where we're going to live?" he asked in a small voice. "This is it," Harrison confirmed, opening the gate. "And look at the backyard you have to play in." Caleb ran to the back garden, where there was a small grassy area and some fruit trees. He had never had a yard of his own. Evelyn, leaning on Harrison's arm, watched the boy's joy with tears in her eyes. "Thank you, my son, for everything. For coming back, for bringing us here, for giving Caleb a real family. Thank you, Mom, for teaching me it's never too late to do the right thing." That night, the first night of the new unconventional family, Harrison helped settle Evelyn into her room, comfortable and well lit, with a reading chair near the window overlooking the garden. Caleb chose the smallest of the rooms, but he was radiant with the new bed, the empty closet waiting for clothes he would soon buy, and the desk where he could do homework. Before sleeping, Harrison made a call he had been putting off all day. He called Victoria. "Harrison?" Her voice was cold, distant. "I hope you're calling to tell me you've come to your senses." "Victoria, I want to talk to you in person. We have important things to settle. We only have one thing to settle, you publicly admitting you had a temporary breakdown and apologizing for that embarrassing scene at the cemetery." "It wasn't a breakdown, Victoria. It was the best decision I've ever made in my life." The silence on the other end of the line was long and heavy. "Harrison, if you insist on this madness, my lawyer will file for separation of assets, and I will fight for half of everything we built together." "That's fine, Victoria, we'll talk about that too, but in person. There's nothing to talk about. Either you go back to normal, or our marriage ends here." "Then it ends here," said Harrison, surprising himself with the firmness in his voice, "because I have never been so normal in my entire life." When he hung up the phone, Harrison felt an immense weight leave his shoulders. For years he had lived trying to meet Victoria's expectations, society's, the business circles. Now for the first time, he was living according to his own values. He walked to the garden where he found Caleb still awake, sitting on the grass, looking at the stars. "Can't sleep." "I can, it's just that I've never slept in such a quiet house. On the street there's always noise, movement. Here it's so quiet you can hear your own thoughts." Harrison sat down next to the boy on the grass. "And what are you thinking?" "That maybe my mother, wherever she is happy to see that finally someone wants to take care of me. That maybe she sent Mrs. Evelyn into my life to teach me what it's like to have a grandmother, and you to teach me what it's like to have a father." The profound simplicity of Caleb's words moved Harrison deeply. The boy had lost so much in life, yet maintained a capacity for hope and gratitude that the businessman admired. "Caleb, I promise you one thing. I will do everything in my power to give you the childhood you deserve. School, play, safety, love. Everything that's been denied until now. And I promise to be a son you can be proud of. I'll study hard, help take care of Mrs. Evelyn. I won't be any trouble." "Caleb, you've already given me the greatest pride a father can have in a son. You had courage when I didn't. You took care of who I should have taken care of. You saved our family." The two sat in silence for a few minutes, just appreciating the tranquility of the night and the feeling of security neither had felt in a long time. "Sir Harrison, can I ask one last thing?" "You may." "Tomorrow, when I wake up, will you still be here? This isn't a dream that's going to end, is it?" Harrison put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "Caleb, tomorrow you will wake up in this house. You will have breakfast with Mrs. Evelyn, and we will go together to buy school supplies for you to start studying, and the day after tomorrow too, and every day after that. This is your home now, and we are your family. Forever." Caleb finally smiled, a smile of pure relief and happiness. "Then now I can sleep in peace." When they went back inside, Harrison checked on Evelyn, who was already sleeping peacefully in her new bed. For the first time in years, her face showed no lines of worry or sadness. She seemed finally at peace. The next morning, Harrison woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of animated conversation coming from the kitchen. He found Evelyn and Caleb already awake, her teaching the boy how to prepare a proper breakfast. "Good morning, family," said Harrison, still getting used to the concept. "Good morning, Sir Harrison." Caleb was beaming. "Mrs. Evelyn is teaching me how to make sweet brioche just like she used to make for you when you were little. And he's a very diligent student," added Evelyn, smiling. "He has skillful hands for the kitchen." During breakfast, Harrison observed the natural interaction between Evelyn and Caleb. There was no artificiality, no tension. It was a real family, formed not by blood ties but by love, mutual need, and conscious choice. "Today we're going to do several important things," announced Harrison. "First, we're going to the doctor with Mother for a complete checkup. Then we'll buy clothes and school supplies for Caleb. In the afternoon, we're going to the school to enroll him." Caleb almost choked on his bread. "Today? I'm going to start studying today?" "Well, first you'll take an assessment to see which grade you can enter, but yes, we want you to start as soon as possible." "And what if I don't know things? What if the other boys laugh at me for having lived on the street?" Evelyn held the boy's hand. "Caleb, my dear, you are smart, brave, and have a good heart. Anyone who can't see that is the one with the problem, not you. And if anyone bothers you at school," added Harrison, "you tell me and I'll handle it. No one is going to mistreat my son." The word son echoed in the kitchen, and Caleb's eyes widened. "You called me son." "That's what you are now, Caleb. If you want to be, of course." Caleb nodded vigorously, too moved to speak. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of activities. At the doctor's, Evelyn was diagnosed with some nutritional deficiencies and joint problems stemming from years of inadequate care at the county nursing home, but nothing that couldn't be treated with proper medication and physical therapy. At the clothing store, Caleb tried on his first school uniform with an almost religious solemnity. When he looked at himself in the mirror, wearing the blue shirt and dress pants, his eyes filled with tears. "I look like a real boy," he murmured. "You've always been a real boy," corrected Harrison. "Now you look like a loved boy." At the school, a private institution with a good reputation in the neighborhood, the principal initially hesitated to accept Caleb due to his lack of previous school records. But when Harrison explained the situation, omitting the more dramatic details, and committed to paying for tutoring if necessary, she agreed to do an assessment. To everyone's surprise, Caleb demonstrated knowledge equivalent to a child who had studied normally. Evelyn had truly done an excellent job teaching him during their months together at the nursing home. "He can start tomorrow," said the principal. "He's a very bright and polite boy. I'm sure he'll adapt well." When they left the school, Caleb was practically floating with happiness. "Tomorrow I'm going to school, in a uniform with new supplies, like a normal boy." "Not like a normal boy," corrected Evelyn, "like a special boy, because you are special, my dear." In the late afternoon, when they returned home laden with purchases and news, Harrison received a call he had been expecting. It was his lawyer, informing him that Victoria had officially filed for separation and that the process would be contentious. "She's asking for half the assets and is alleging abandonment of the marital home and irresponsible behavior," informed the lawyer. "It's going to be a tough battle, Harrison." "Do whatever it takes," Harrison replied calmly. "But protect the house where my family is living. That is non-negotiable." When he hung up, he found Evelyn and Caleb watching him with concern. "Trouble?" asked Evelyn. "Nothing that can't be handled. Victoria wants a divorce and will fight for the assets." "So Harrison, if because of us you're going to lose your wife and your home," began Caleb, worried. "Caleb, I haven't lost anything important. In fact, I've gained everything that truly matters. Victoria made her decision and I respect it. But I won't give you up for anything in this world." Evelyn approached her son and hugged him. "My son, I know this isn't easy. Deconstructing one life to build another is never simple." "Mother, I'm not deconstructing anything. I'm finally building the life I should have always had, a life with purpose, with real love, with genuine responsibility for the well-being of those who matter." That night, after Evelyn and Caleb had gone to sleep, Harrison stayed alone in the living room, reflecting on all the changes of the past few days. In less than a week, he had lost a wife, discovered his mother was alive, gained an adopted son, moved houses, and completely reshaped his life priorities. But for the first time in decades, he felt at peace with himself. His phone rang. It was a message from one of his business partners, demanding explanations for his absence and for the rumors circulating about the incident at the cemetery. Harrison typed a simple reply. "I've decided to take on responsibilities I had neglected. I'll return to work when my family is settled." It wasn't an answer that would satisfy the partners, and Harrison knew there would be professional consequences. Some clients might cancel contracts. Some associates might question his sanity. His reputation in business circles would certainly be shaken. But looking around the simple house where his mother slept peacefully and his adopted son dreamed of his first day of school, Harrison realized he had discovered a form of success far more valuable than any bank account. In the days that followed, the new family's routine settled naturally. Caleb went to school every morning, returning in the afternoon full of stories to tell. Evelyn did physical therapy, received regular visits from a nurse, and dedicated her afternoons to teaching Caleb things he didn't learn in school: values, principles, family stories. Harrison adapted his work schedule to be present for the important decisions at home. He discovered he could be an efficient businessman working fewer hours, as long as those hours were well spent. A week after the move, something happened that tested Harrison's resolve. Caleb came home from school with his uniform torn and a cut on his lip. "What happened?" asked Evelyn, alarmed. "Some boys said I was a beggar, that I shouldn't be in a rich kid's school," murmured Caleb, clearly ashamed. "I tried to ignore them, but they kept going. Then one of them pushed me and I fell." Harrison felt a cold anger rise in his chest. He took Caleb to the bathroom to clean the cut, while trying to control his urge to go to the school and confront the parents of the aggressive children. "Caleb, did you tell any teacher?" "No, sir. I didn't want to cause more trouble." "Son, when someone hurts you, you have to tell the responsible adults. It's not causing trouble, it's protecting yourself." Evelyn appeared at the bathroom door with an ice pack. "Caleb, my dear, there will always be people who try to make others feel small to make themselves feel big, but that says more about them than it does about you. "But what if they're right?" asked Caleb in a small voice. "What if I really shouldn't be at that school?" Harrison knelt in front of the boy and looked him in the eyes. "Caleb, you have every right to be at that school as any other child. Your background doesn't define your worth or your future, and if someone doesn't understand that, that's their problem, not yours." "Tomorrow I'm going with you to school," Harrison decided. "I'll talk to the principal and make sure this doesn't happen again. But what if that makes the boys tease me more? Caleb, you need to learn an important thing in life. We can't control what others do, but we can control how we react. And in this family, we don't accept mistreatment from anyone. We protect ourselves and protect those we love." The next day, Harrison accompanied Caleb to school and had a frank conversation with the principal about the bullying. The woman committed to speaking with the children involved and their parents, and to implementing a program of tolerance and respect for diversity. "Mr. Reed," said the principal at the end of the conversation, "I want you to know that I consider Caleb one of our best students. He is polite, hardworking, and has impressive emotional maturity for his age. Thank you for saying that. He really is special. May I ask how you met? His story is interesting." Harrison hesitated for a moment, then decided on honesty. "Caleb saved my family, literally, and now I'm trying to repay him by giving him the childhood he deserves." When Harrison returned home, he found Evelyn and Caleb in the kitchen, making cookies to take to his schoolmates the next day. "How did the talk with the principal go?" asked Evelyn. "Very well. She will resolve the situation," and praised Caleb a lot. "You really went there to defend me?" asked Caleb, still amazed. "Of course I did. That's what fathers do, Caleb. They protect their children." Caleb ran to hug Harrison, smudging his dress shirt with flour. "Thank you for being my dad, Sir Harrison. Thank you for teaching me how to be a father, Caleb." Evelyn watched the hug between the two with tears in her eyes. After so many years of loneliness and abandonment, she saw her son finally finding his life's purpose, and an orphaned boy finally finding a family. 2 weeks later, the day Harrison had been both dreading and hoping for arrived. Sterling called to schedule a meeting to definitively resolve the situation of the other residents in irregular status. "Mr. Reed, I need your cooperation to regularize the cases that emerged after Mrs. Evelyn's departure. Some families are asking questions." "What kind of questions?" "Families who learned about your case and want to investigate if their relatives really passed away. It's complicated." Harrison felt his stomach tighten. What he had feared was happening. Other similar cases were coming to light. "How many families?" "So far, 3, but it could increase if the situation leaks to the press." "Sterling, you've created a problem that goes far beyond the two of us. There are families who spent years in unnecessary mourning, elderly people living as ghosts. This is inhumane. Mr. Reed, I need your help to control the situation. If this becomes a public scandal, the nursing home will close, and hundreds of elderly people who truly depend on our services will be left helpless." Sterling's emotional blackmail deeply irritated Harrison, but he knew the man had a valid point. If the nursing home closed abruptly, many innocent elderly people would be harmed. "I'll come there, but not to help you cover anything up. I'm coming to help resolve the situation the right way." When Harrison arrived at the nursing home the next day, he found Sterling visibly nervous and 3 couples of different ages waiting in the reception area. "These are the families who want to investigate their cases?" Harrison asked quietly. "Yes, all with situations similar to yours." Harrison observed the faces of those people, expressions of hope mixed with fear, exactly as he had felt when Caleb told him about Evelyn. "Mr. Reed?" A woman of about 60 years old approached. "Are you the person who discovered your mother was alive?" "I am. And you are?" "Sarah Bennett. 2 years ago, Mr. Sterling informed me that my father had passed away here. But yesterday a cleaning staff member came to me saying she saw an elderly man who looks very much like my father in the backyard garden." The other couples approached, each telling similar versions of the same story. Fathers and mothers officially dead, but possibly alive somewhere in the nursing home. "What do you want to do?" asked Harrison. "We want to see our family members," replied a middle-aged man. "We want to know if they are alive, and if they are, We want to get them out of here immediately." "Mr. Sterling," said Harrison, addressing the administrator, "you are going to take these families to see their loved ones. Now." "Sir Harrison, this could cause severe emotional shocks. The elderly are not prepared for sudden reunions. Just like my mother wasn't prepared, and yet it was the best day of her life." Sterling had no choice but to agree. During the next hour, Harrison witnessed 3 emotionally devastating reunions between family members who thought each other dead and children who had lived through years of unnecessary mourning. The most touching was the case of Mr. Anthony, a 78-year-old former metalworker who had been dead for 4 years, but upon seeing his daughter Sarah enter his room, simply murmured, "I knew you'd come back, my little girl. I knew you wouldn't abandon me forever." Sarah broke down in tears, embracing her frail but living father. "Dad, I thought you had died. They told me you had died. I died a little every day waiting for you to show up," replied the old man, stroking his daughter's hair. "But now, I've come back to life again." Harrison watched the scene with a mixture of joy and outrage. Joy for the reunion, outrage at the unnecessary cruelty those families had suffered. By the end of the day, the 3 elderly residents were being transferred by their families for proper care, and Sterling faced the prospect of official investigations and the possible closure of the nursing home. "Sir Harrison," said Sterling when they were alone, "you got what you wanted. You've destroyed my reputation, jeopardized the operation of this institution, caused emotional trauma for several families." "I didn't cause any trauma, Sterling. I merely revealed traumas you caused. The difference is that now these families can begin to heal their wounds instead of continuing to pretend they don't exist. And what will happen to me? That's not up to me. It's up to your conscience, the justice system, and the families you deceived." When Harrison returned home that night, he found Caleb studying at the kitchen table while Evelyn prepared dinner. The simple domestic scene struck him with unexpected emotional force. "How was it at the nursing home?" asked Evelyn. "Painful, but necessary. 3 families got their loved ones back today." "That's good," said Caleb, looking up from his books. "No one deserves to go through what you went through, thinking the person you love has died. And no one deserves to go through what you went through, being abandoned by those who should have cared," replied Harrison. During dinner, Caleb told them about his day at school. The bullying had decreased significantly after Harrison's intervention, and he was excelling in math and English. "The teacher said I have the potential to be an engineer just like you," Caleb said proudly. "If that's what you want, we'll work to make it happen," promised Harrison. "But you can be anything you want, Caleb. A doctor, a teacher, an artist, anything. I want to be someone who helps people, like you helped me, like Mrs. Evelyn helped me." "Then you're already on the right path," said Evelyn. "Because you've already helped us much more than you realize." That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Harrison received a call from his lawyer with news about the divorce. "Victoria is willing to make a settlement," the lawyer informed him. "She keeps the main house and half the investments, and you keep the businesses and can keep the house where you're living now." "And the alimony?" "She's waiving alimony in exchange for a lump sum. Frankly, it's a rather generous settlement on her part." Harrison thought for a moment. The settlement meant he would lose a significant portion of his wealth, but he would keep his company and the house where his new family lived. "Accept the settlement," he decided. "The sooner this is resolved, the better for everyone." "Are you sure? We can contest it and try for a more favorable deal." "I'm sure. Victoria deserves to start her life over, and I deserve to finish building mine." A week later, the divorce was finalized. Harrison sat down with Evelyn and Caleb to explain the financial changes this would mean. "We'll have to cut some expenses," he explained. "Maybe change schools, save on some things." "Sir Harrison," Caleb interrupted, "if needed, I can stop studying and go back to work to help with the expenses." "Caleb, you will not stop studying for anything in this world," Harrison said firmly. "That is our #1 priority. I'll figure out a way to keep everything running." "My son," Evelyn added, "don't worry about us. Caleb and I don't need luxury. We need you, love, care. The rest is superfluous." You deserve the best I can give." "And you are giving it," said Caleb. "You're giving us a family, an education, affection. No amount of money can pay for that." In the following months, the family faced some financial adjustments, but adapted with surprising ease. Harrison discovered he could live with much less money than he imagined, as long as he had purpose and people he loved by his side. Caleb excelled in school, developing a particular interest in mathematics and civil engineering. Evelyn regained much of her energy and independence, becoming an active and beloved presence in the neighborhood. Harrison, in turn, found a balance between work and family that he had never imagined possible. His businesses suffered some impact due to the social scandal, but they stabilized with clients who valued his personal integrity as much as his professional competence. 6 months after that transformative day at the cemetery, Harrison was in the backyard helping Caleb with a science project when Evelyn joined them with an envelope in her hands. "An official letter arrived today," she said. "It looks important." Harrison opened the envelope and found a court summons. Sterling was being prosecuted for document fraud and other crimes, and Harrison was called to testify as a victim and the primary whistleblower. "What is it?" asked Caleb, noticing the seriousness on Harrison's face. "Mr. Sterling is going to answer in court for what he did. And I'm going to have to tell the judge everything that happened." "Are you nervous, sir?" asked Caleb. "A little, but I'm also relieved. Finally, this story will have an official resolution." "It will be difficult to relive all of that," observed Evelyn. "It will. But it's necessary. Other families might be going through the same situation elsewhere. If my testimony helps prevent that, it's worth it." On the day of the trial, 3 months later, Harrison appeared in court accompanied by Evelyn and Caleb. Several other families affected by Sterling's scheme were also present. During his testimony, Harrison recounted in detail his experience, from the phone call that falsely announced his mother's death to the dramatic reunion at the county nursing home. His voice trembled as he spoke about the 3 lost years and how Caleb had found the courage to reveal the truth. "What strikes me most about this story," Harrison told the judge, "isn't the fraud itself but the psychological cruelty. Forcing the elderly to live as if they were dead, forcing families to endure unnecessary grief. That causes wounds that go far beyond the financial loss." "And how do you assess the impact of this experience on your life?" asked the prosecutor. Harrison looked at Evelyn and Caleb, seated in the front row of the courtroom. "It was the best thing that ever happened to me. Discovering my mother was alive forced me to rethink everything I considered important. It made me understand that family isn't a burden or a social obligation. It's the source of all real meaning in life." At the end of the trial, Sterling was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to pay substantial compensation to all affected families. The nursing home was temporarily closed for a complete investigation and restructuring. Leaving the courthouse, Sarah Bennett, Mr. Anthony's daughter, approached Harrison. "Sir Reed, I want to thank you. If it weren't for your courage to expose this, I would never have gotten my father back." "The courage wasn't mine," Harrison replied. "It belonged to a 12-year-old boy who had the audacity to interrupt a funeral to shout a truth no one wanted to hear." Sarah looked at Caleb, who was standing beside Harrison. "Thank you, Caleb. You're a hero." Caleb blushed, but smiled proudly. 1 year after that day at the cemetery, Harrison organized a birthday party for Evelyn. Not for her biological age, but celebrating the first year of her resurrection, as she liked to call it. The party was in the backyard, with simple but heartfelt decorations. Some neighbors who had become friends were there, some families who had gone through similar situations and kept in touch, and Caleb's teachers who had become more than educators. They had become supporters of his journey. "I'd like to make a toast," said Harrison, raising his glass of soda. "A year ago I thought I'd lost my mother forever. In truth, I had lost much more than that. I had lost the meaning of life, the notion of family, the understanding of what truly matters." Caleb, now 13 and visibly stronger and more confident, smiled. "Caleb," Harrison continued, "you saved our family, but more than that, you taught us that courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is having fear and doing the right thing anyway. And Mrs. Evelyn," Caleb stood up to speak, "taught me that love has no age, no limits, that a person can be a grandma, a mother, and a best friend all at the same time. Evelyn, now 71, but looking 10 years younger than when she lived in the nursing home, wiped a tear from her cheek. And you two taught me that it's never too late for a fresh start. That family is who chooses to stay when all seems lost. That true love isn't what we receive, but what we give. When the party ended and everyone went to sleep, Harrison stayed alone in the backyard, reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the past year. He had lost a wife, part of his wealth, and some social standing. But he had gained a true family, a life purpose, and an inner peace he never imagined possible. His phone rang. It was a message from Victoria, the first direct communication since the divorce. "I saw the news article about the trial. I hope you are happy with your choices." Harrison typed a simple reply, "Thank you. I hope you are happy too." There was no hurt, no bitterness. Victoria had made the right decision for her, just as he had made the right decision for him. They were different people with different values who for a time shared a life that suited neither of them. 2 weeks after the party, Caleb came home from school with exciting news. "Sir Harrison, Mrs. Evelyn, I won first place at the school science fair." "That's wonderful," exclaimed Evelyn. "What was your project?" "I made a model of how to build affordable housing that is both beautiful and functional. I used some ideas from your projects, Sir Harrison, but adapted them for low-income families." Harrison was moved. Caleb had inherited not only his interest in construction, but his social conscience. "Caleb, do you really want to be a civil engineer?" "I do, but I want to be an engineer who builds homes for people who need them, not just for those who can pay a lot." "Then let's work to make that happen. I can start teaching you the practical aspects of the profession on weekends if you'd like." "Can we start tomorrow?" Evelyn watched the enthusiasm of the two and smiled. She finally saw her son fulfilling the dream she had always had for him, not just professional success, but the satisfaction of using his talents to help others. In the following months, Harrison began gradually involving Caleb in his professional projects, teaching him the fundamentals of civil engineering and business management. The boy showed impressive aptitude and, more importantly, a solid work ethic and genuine concern for the social impact of his future constructions. For Caleb's 14th birthday, Harrison decided to do something special. He took the boy to see some of his most important works in Chicago, explaining the technical and social challenges of each project. "Sir Harrison," said Caleb as they observed a housing complex Harrison had designed years ago, "are you proud of all these buildings?" "Some more than others," Harrison answered honestly. "These affordable apartments, for example, make me proud because I know they brought dignity to families in need. But that shopping mall over there, well, it brought money, but I'm not sure it brought real value to the community. When I graduate, I want our projects to only bring real value," Caleb said with determination. "Our projects?" "Well, I thought we were going to work together. Don't you want to?" Harrison smiled, deeply touched by Caleb's perspective of already planning a shared future. "Caleb, there's nothing I want more. But you'll still have time to explore other options, other possibilities. You don't have to decide now." "I've already decided. I want to build houses with you, and I want Mrs. Evelyn to live long enough to see our first project together." That night, Harrison told Evelyn about the conversation with Caleb. "He really sees you as a father," she observed, "and he sees our family as permanent. And you, Mother, how do you feel about all this?" Evelyn held her son's hands. "Harrison, I spent 3 years living like a ghost. Now I live each day as if it were a gift. Caleb brought joy to my old age. You brought purpose to my remaining days. I am complete. We still have many years ahead, Mother." "I hope so. I want to see Caleb graduate, get married, give us grandchildren. I want to see you find a woman who truly values you. I want to see our family grow and become stronger." 2 years after the first meeting at the cemetery, Caleb was graduating from middle school with the best grades in his class. The graduation ceremony was a moment of intense emotion for the whole family. Watching Caleb on stage, receiving awards for academic excellence and citizenship, Harrison remembered the skinny, desperate boy who had interrupted a funeral to shout a truth no one wanted to hear. "I'm so proud. whispered Evelyn, wiping tears from her eyes. "So proud of both of you." "Why of me, too?" "Because you had the courage to abandon a life that didn't make you happy to build a life that has meaning. It's not easy to start over in your 40s. I didn't start over, Mum. I simply stopped pretending and started living for real." During the graduation party at the school, several parents approached Harrison to congratulate him on the upbringing he had given Caleb. "Your son is an example for all the children," said one mother. "Polite, studious, compassionate. You did an excellent job." Harrison was always moved when someone called Caleb your son naturally. The official adoption had been finalized a year ago, but Harrison knew Caleb was his son long before the legal papers confirmed the obvious. "The credit is all his," Harrison would invariably respond. "He already had character when he came to us. We just provided structure and opportunities." At the end of the party, when they were heading home, Caleb asked a question that surprised Harrison. "Dad," he had started calling him that naturally in recent months, "do you think if that day at the cemetery hadn't happened, I would be here today?" Harrison thought carefully before answering. "Caleb, I think you were always special. You always had the potential to go far in life. Maybe through different paths, but you would have found a way. But I wouldn't have found you, and you two wouldn't have found each other again." "That's true. Sometimes I think that day changed 3 lives at once." "It changed more than that," said Evelyn from the back seat. "It changed the lives of all those families who recovered their loved ones at the nursing home." It was true. The case had not only generated legal changes in nursing home regulations, but also a social movement for greater attention to the elderly in vulnerable situations. The following summer, Harrison received an unexpected invitation. A local university wanted him to give a lecture to engineering students on business ethics and social responsibility. "I think they've mistaken me for someone else," Harrison said to Evelyn. "I'm not an example of anything." "Of course you are," retorted Caleb. "You had the courage to completely change your life when you discovered you were on the wrong path. How many adults can do that?" "Caleb is right," agreed Evelyn. "You can teach these young people that success isn't just money or status. It's living according to your values." Harrison accepted the invitation, and on the day of the lecture he was visibly nervous. Caleb and Evelyn went to watch him, sitting proudly in the front row of the auditorium. During his talk, Harrison told his story without omitting embarrassing details about his past, of family neglect and obsessive pursuit of social status. He spoke about how a street kid had changed his life perspective and how redefining success had made him a more fulfilled person. "The biggest mistake I made for years," Harrison told the students, "was believing that being successful meant impressing people I didn't even really know, while neglecting the people who truly loved me. True success is sleeping in peace, knowing you've made a positive difference in the lives of those who matter." "Professor," asked a student, "how did you know you were on the wrong path?" "A 12-year-old boy had the courage to tell me a truth I didn't want to hear. Sometimes we need someone from the outside to show us what's right in front of us." "And your business? Did you lose a lot of money with these changes?" "I lost assets, but I gained purpose. Today my projects are smaller financially, but greater in social impact, and I sleep much better at night." During the Q&A period, Caleb stood up and asked to speak. "I just wanted to say one thing to you all," he said, clearly nervous about speaking to college students. "My father, my adoptive father, he saved me from the streets and gave me a family, but I think we actually saved each other. Sometimes the people we need most are right in front of us. We just aren't paying attention." The auditorium applauded, and Harrison felt tears in his eyes watching Caleb, now 15, speaking with maturity and wisdom to people almost 10 years older than him. After the lecture, several students approached to talk more. Some wanted to know about internship opportunities in social projects. Others wanted advice on how to balance professional ambition with social responsibility. "Sir Reed," said a young man, "your story made me rethink what I want for my future. I was only thinking about making money, but now I understand I can use engineering to make a real difference." "I'm glad to have helped," Harrison replied. "But remember, it's not about choosing between money and purpose. It's about finding projects that bring both. On the way back home, Caleb was excited about the experience. "Dad, it was amazing to see how our story inspired those students. I think you should give more lectures." "You really think so?" "I do, and I think I'd like to study at that university when I graduate high school." "Because of the lecture?" "Not just, but because I saw that there they care not only about technique, but about training engineers who think about the social impact of their work." Evelyn, who had observed everything in silence, finally spoke. "You two are my pride. Harrison, for having found your path. Caleb, for already knowing which path you want to follow. And me, for having lived long enough to see this." That night, Harrison reflected on how his life had completely transformed. 3 years ago, his concerns were limited to profits, status, and social impressions. Today, he thought about Caleb's education, Evelyn's health, and projects that could benefit underprivileged communities. It wasn't an easier life, but it was infinitely more satisfying. During Caleb's last year of high school, the family faced their first major health challenge. Evelyn, now 74, had to be hospitalized due to heart complications. During the days of hospitalization, Harrison and Caleb took turns at the hospital, ensuring she was never alone. "What if she doesn't recover?" Caleb asked on an especially difficult night. "What if I lose my grandma?" "Caleb, we all will leave one day, but what matters isn't how long we stay, it's how we use the time we have." I wasn't prepared for this. No one is ever prepared to lose someone they love, but Mrs. Evelyn lived much longer than she expected when she was at the county nursing home. These last years have been a gift to all of us. Fortunately, Evelyn recovered after 2 weeks of intensive treatment. But the experience served as a reminder that time is precious and limited. "Grandma," Caleb said when she returned home, "I was so afraid of losing you." "My dear, I was afraid too, but not of dying. I was afraid of leaving before seeing you graduate and enter university. Then you have to take really good care of yourself because that's still 2 years away." "I will take care. I have so much left to see you both achieve." Evelyn's health episode also brought Harrison and Caleb even closer. During the long hours at the hospital, they talked about deep topics they had never addressed before. "Dad, do you regret anything?" "Many things, Caleb. I regret not taking proper care of my mother when she needed it. I regret taking years to understand what really matters in life. But if you hadn't done those things, maybe you never would have found me at the cemetery." "That's true. Sometimes our mistakes end up leading us to where we need to be." "And you, do you regret anything?" Caleb thought for a few minutes before answering. "I regret not having had the courage to look for you sooner. If I had known that Mrs. Evelyn had a son who thought she had died, I would have told you much earlier." "Why didn't you tell?" "Because I was afraid that if you knew she was alive but still didn't go see her, it would be worse for her than pretending you didn't know." The maturity of Caleb's reflection, even at just 17, impressed Harrison. The boy had developed an emotional wisdom that many adults never achieve. During the last months of high school, Caleb dedicated himself intensely to his studies to get a full scholarship at the university. Even though Harrison could afford to pay for his education, Caleb insisted on earning the spot on his own merit. "Caleb, it's no problem for me to pay for your college," Harrison said more than once. "I know, Dad, but I want to prove to myself that I can do it. I want to enter the university knowing I deserve to be there." "You've already proven everything you need to prove. To you and to Grandma, yes. Now I need to prove it to myself." Harrison respected his son's decision, but secretly felt proud of Caleb's determination to forge his own path. On the day the entrance exam results came out, the whole family was nervous. Caleb had applied for civil engineering at the university, where Harrison had given his lecture years before, competing for one of the 5 full scholarships available. When the results were posted online, Caleb was the top scorer overall, securing not only the full scholarship, but also a position in the scientific initiation program. "I did it!" shouted Caleb, running to hug Evelyn and Harrison. "I did it!" "Of course you did," said Evelyn, crying with emotion. "I never doubted you for a second." Harrison hugged Caleb tightly, feeling a mix of paternal pride and gratitude for having had the opportunity to witness that boy's extraordinary journey. "Dad, thank you for everything, for giving me a family, a home, an education, but mostly for teaching me that I can be anything I want. Caleb, you taught me that being a father is much more than providing material support. It's believing in someone's potential and helping that person become the best version of themselves." At the high school graduation ceremony, Caleb was chosen to give a speech as the graduating class representative. His speech moved the entire audience. "Some of you have known me for 3 years since I entered this school. Some know that I came from a difficult situation, that for a while I lived on the streets. Today I want to talk about second chances. We all deserve second chances. The chance to start over when we make mistakes, the chance to find our family even if it's not our biological family, the chance to discover our talents even if it's late in life. My family gave me a second chance. My adoptive father gave me a second chance. This school gave me a second chance. And now I want to dedicate my life to giving second chances to others. When I graduate as an engineer, I want to build more than buildings. I want to build opportunities, hopes, futures, because everyone deserves a second chance to be happy." The audience rose in applause, and Harrison saw he wasn't the only one with tears in his eyes. After the ceremony, several parents approached to congratulate Caleb and Harrison. "You've raised an extraordinary young man," said the school principal. "Caleb is an example of resilience and character for all of us." "The credit is all his," replied Harrison, as always. "He had that in him long before he met us." That evening at home, the family celebrated quietly with a special dinner that Evelyn had insisted on preparing, despite Harrison offering to go to a restaurant. "I'd rather celebrate at home," she said. "This is where we are truly a family." During dinner, Caleb made an announcement that surprised Harrison. "Dad, I had an idea for my college graduation project. I want to develop a model for affordable housing that is beautiful, functional, and inexpensive, and I want you to be my unofficial advisor." "Caleb, I'd be honored. But are you sure you want to mix family with work?" "Dad, our family is already our most important work. Now I just want to expand that to help other families have what we have." Evelyn watched the conversation between father and son with a smile of deep satisfaction. At 75, she saw not only that she had regained her son and gained a grandson, but that she was witnessing the beginning of a legacy that would extend far beyond their own lives. During Caleb's first year at university, Harrison began working on a new type of project. Inspired by conversations with his son and his own experience of family rebuilding, he decided to create a foundation focused on reintegrating vulnerable children and teenagers. "What do you think of this idea?" he asked Caleb during one of his weekend visits. "I think it's amazing, Dad, and I think Grandma should be involved too. She understands better than anyone what it's like to feel abandoned and then find a family. Evelyn, would you be willing to help with a project like this?" "Harrison, my son, at 75 I can still be useful for something. Of course I will." The Fresh Start Foundation was founded 6 months later, operating in a spacious house that Harrison bought and specifically adapted for the project. The foundation offered temporary shelter, educational support, and most importantly, mediation work to reunite families in situations of conflict or abandonment. Evelyn became a sort of official grandma of the foundation, offering maternal affection and life wisdom to children who had never experienced family stability. Caleb, even while focused on his studies, dedicated his weekends to the foundation, helping the younger children with homework and serving as an example of overcoming adversity. "You three have become a family that helps other families," observed the psychologist who worked at the foundation. "It's beautiful to see." During his second year of college, Caleb brought a surprise home, a girlfriend. Megan was a classmate, the daughter of a lower middle-class family who had earned a scholarship just like Caleb. "Dad, Grandma, I want you to meet Megan," said Caleb, clearly nervous. "Of course, son. We want to meet this important girl," replied Evelyn. Megan proved to be a simple, intelligent young woman, clearly in love with Caleb. During dinner, she made an observation that deeply touched Harrison. "Caleb always tells me about you all, about how you found each other, how you built a family. It's one of the most beautiful stories I've ever heard." "And what did you think of the story?" asked Harrison. "That you proved family has nothing to do with blood. It has to do with choice, love, and dedication." "Exactly," said Evelyn. "And now you're part of our family too, if you want." Megan was moved by the immediate and warm inclusion. "You don't even really know me yet." "We know enough," said Harrison. "Caleb has good taste in people, and if you're important to him, you're important to us too." In the following months, Megan became a constant presence in the house and at the foundation. She was studying education and was fascinated by the work the family did in reintegrating vulnerable children. "Have you ever thought about expanding the foundation?" she asked during a conversation over Sunday lunch. "Expand how?" Harrison wanted to know. "Create a mentorship program where people who have gone through difficult situations and recovered help others in similar circumstances." Caleb got excited about the idea. "Megan is right, Dad. Our story could inspire other families to reconcile, other people to adopt, other children not to give up." "It's an interesting idea," Harrison admitted. "But how would that work in practice?" "We could give talks, create support groups, do family mediations," suggested Megan. "Turn our personal experience into a tool for social help." Evelyn, who had listened to everything in silence, finally spoke. "My dears, I've had a long life. I've been through a lot. And I can tell you one thing. When we turn our pain into a tool to lessen the pain of others, life gains a meaning that goes far beyond ourselves." "So you think we should try?" asked Harrison. "I think we should," replied Caleb. "Our family began with a boy shouting the truth in a cemetery. Maybe it's time to shout some truths to the whole world." During Caleb's third year of university, the Fresh Start Foundation's mentorship program was running at full capacity. Harrison, Evelyn, and Caleb began giving joint talks on family reconstruction, and their stories inspired dozens of families to reconcile. One of the most striking cases was that of Martha, a 40-year-old mother who had lost contact with her teenage son after a series of misunderstandings. She sought out the foundation after attending one of Harrison's talks. "Mr. Reed, my son left home 6 months ago after a terrible argument. I don't even know where he is, if he's okay, if he needs anything." "What was the argument about?" asked Harrison. "He wanted to drop out of high school to work and help me with the bills. I said he was irresponsible, that he was throwing his future away. I said terrible things. He responded in kind, and he's been gone ever since." Evelyn joined the conversation. "My dear, sometimes we say things we don't mean when we're scared. You were scared for your boy's future. He was scared of seeing his mother struggle. Fear makes us make mistakes. How can I find him? How can I fix this?" Caleb, who was present, offered his perspective. "Mrs. Martha, I spent a lot of time on the streets. I know where boys like your son usually stay. I can help look for him if you'd like." For 2 weeks, Caleb and Harrison scoured known gathering spots for homeless youth in Chicago until they finally found Justin, Martha's son, working as a helper in an auto repair shop. The reunion was emotional and difficult. Mother and son had a lot of accumulated resentment, but also a lot of repressed love. "Mom, I just wanted to help. I couldn't stand seeing you struggle," said Justin, crying. "Son, I just wanted you to have a better future than I did." "I didn't want you to drop out of school like I did," replied Martha, also in tears. With Harrison and Evelyn's mediation, mother and son managed to find a middle ground. Justin would return to school for night classes and would work part-time to help at home. "You saved my family," said Martha at the end of the process. "How can I repay you?" "By being happy and taking good care of Justin," replied Evelyn, "and perhaps by helping other families going through the same situation." Martha became a volunteer at the foundation, and Justin, inspired by Caleb's story, decided he also wanted to study engineering. During his senior year of college, Caleb began developing his graduation project, a model for affordable housing that incorporated concepts of sustainability, functionality, and aesthetic beauty. Harrison, as promised, acted as an unofficial consultant. "Dad, I want this project to be more than just a college thesis. I want it to be something that can actually be implemented." "Caleb, you have high ambitions, that's good. But remember that social projects depend on much more than good intentions. They need economic viability, political support, complex logistics. I know. That's why I want us to work together after I graduate. Not necessarily at your company, but on specific projects focused on affordable housing. Are you thinking of a family partnership? I'm thinking of turning our family into a social enterprise. The Fresh Start Foundation for family and social support, and a family-run construction company for affordable housing projects. Caleb's ambition impressed Harrison, but it also worried him. His son was envisioning immense projects without perhaps fully understanding their complexities. Caleb, let's take it one step at a time. First, finish college. Then you do some internships to better understand the market. Then we can talk about bigger partnerships. Okay, Dad, but don't give up on the idea, okay? I would never give up on an idea of yours, Caleb. I just want you to be prepared to make it a reality. During Caleb's last semester, Evelyn began to show signs of more pronounced decline. At 77, she remained lucid and active, but her physical energy was visibly waning. "Grandma, are you okay?" asked Caleb one afternoon, when he found her sleeping in the living room armchair. "I'm fine, my dear, just a little more tired than usual." "Maybe we should run some tests," suggested Harrison. "You don't need tests to know I'm getting old, my son," Evelyn replied with good humor. "But I'm old and happy, which is what matters." The family began to organize to provide more support for Evelyn, hiring a caregiver for the daytime, and rearranging the household routine so she would never be alone. "Grandma, I could take a leave from college this last semester and stay to take care of you," offered Caleb. "Caleb Reed, if you even think of doing that, I'll die of sorrow," Evelyn retorted firmly. "You are going to graduate, you are going to get your diploma, and I will be there in the front row cheering." "But what if—" "There is no what if, my dear. Life is meant to be lived while we are alive, and you have a beautiful life ahead of you." During the last months before Caleb's graduation, the family intensified their time together. Longer dinners, deeper conversations, redoubled attention to the small gestures of daily life. One night, Evelyn called Harrison for a private conversation. "My son, I need to talk to you about something important." "What is it, Mum?" "When I'm gone, and don't interrupt me, we both know it won't be long, I want you and Caleb to continue everything we've built, the foundation, the projects, the family we've created. Mum, let me finish. You have given me the happiest years of my life. You gave me purpose, love, meaning. When I go, I will go complete, fulfilled. But I want you to move forward without guilt, without excessive sadness. How can I promise not to feel sadness? Don't promise not to feel, promise not to stop living. Caleb needs you to fulfill all the dreams he has, and you need him to keep discovering how to be a better person. I promise, Mum. And promise me one more thing. Anything. Promise that you will find a good woman to share your life with. Caleb will marry, will have children. I want you to also have someone to love and be loved by." Harrison smiled, moved. "I promise to try, Mom." Caleb's graduation was held on a sunny December morning. Evelyn, despite her frailty, insisted on being present, elegant in her navy blue couture gown that Megan had helped her choose. When Caleb took the stage to receive his diploma, the entire family was moved. Harrison thought of the barefoot boy who had shouted in the cemetery 5 years earlier and who was now graduating with honors in civil engineering. "Mrs. Evelyn, you must be so proud," said Megan, who was seated beside her. "I am proud of both of them," replied Evelyn, looking at Caleb on stage and at Harrison by her side. "But mostly I am grateful, grateful to have lived long enough to see this." After the ceremony, during the graduation party, Caleb was again invited to speak as the representative of the graduates with the best academic performance. 5 years ago, Caleb began, I was a street kid who didn't know if I'd have food the next day. Today, I graduate as a civil engineer from one of the best universities in the country. This transformation was only possible for 3 reasons: quality education, a family that believed in me, and the understanding that our success only has meaning if it benefits other people too. When I was 12, I shouted a truth in the middle of a cemetery. Today I want to shout another truth. We all have the potential to transform lives, including our own. We just need the courage to act when we know it's the right thing to do. I dedicate this graduation to my grandmother Evelyn, who taught me that love has no age limit, and to my father Harrison, who taught me that it's never too late for a fresh start. And I promise to use my degree to build not just buildings, but opportunities for others like me. The audience rose in prolonged applause, many with tears in their eyes. When Caleb came down from the stage, Evelyn hugged him tightly. "My grandson, the engineer," she whispered. "Now I can go in peace." "Grandma, don't talk like that." "Caleb, I'm talking like this because I'm happy, not sad. Mission accomplished." During the party that followed, Caleb officially announced his plans to start a company for affordable housing projects in partnership with Harrison. "It will be called New Horizons Construction," he said, "and our first project is already approved by the city, a development of affordable homes in the neighborhood where the foundation operates." Harrison was surprised by the announcement. "Caleb, you didn't tell me you had already submitted plans." "Surprise, Dad. I spent the last year working on this as an experimental project with help from some professors, and now it's approved for implementation." "My God, Caleb, that's extraordinary." "It's just the beginning," replied Caleb, hugging his father. "We have a lot of work ahead of us." During the last days of December, the family enjoyed the holiday season to be together and plan the future. Caleb had been accepted into a master's program in social urbanism. Megan had secured an internship at the foundation, and Harrison was reorganizing his businesses to focus more on social projects. "You know what impresses me most about all of you," said Evelyn one evening, as she watched Caleb and Megan studying plans at the dining table and Harrison reviewing foundation contracts. "It's that you've turned our personal story into a force for social change." "How so, Grandma?" "Caleb, when you shouted in that cemetery, you were saving our family. Now you use our experience to save other families. It's beautiful to see how life can create circles of love." "And what about you, Grandma? What's your next project?" joked Caleb. "My next project is to see you all happy and fulfilled for as long as possible, and maybe meet some great-grandchildren," she said, winking at Megan. Caleb and Megan blushed but smiled. "Easy, Grandma, one project at a time," said Caleb. "At my age, my dear, there's no time for one at a time," Evelyn retorted, laughing. Evelyn passed away peacefully in her sleep one March morning, 3 months after Caleb's graduation. She had spent the previous evening telling stories to a new child the foundation had taken in, laughing and making plans for the following week. Harrison found her in the morning, serene in her bed, with a gentle smile on her face and a photo of Caleb holding his diploma in her hands. The wake was held in the foundation's own chapel, surrounded by the dozens of families she had helped rebuild over the years. Children she had sheltered, parents she had counseled, couples she had mediated, all came to say goodbye to the woman who had become a grandmother to an entire community. During the funeral, Caleb insisted on speaking. "My grandmother Evelyn taught me that family is who stands by our side in difficult times and celebrates with us in the good ones. Looking at this chapel today, I see she built a family much larger than she ever imagined. She died happy because she knew her love would continue to live in all of us who were touched by her kindness. And that's how we will honor her memory, by continuing to build families, to rebuild dreams, to give second chances. Grandma, thank you for teaching me that love has no limit, that kindness has no age, and that it's never too late for a fresh start. Your engineer grandson promises to carry your teachings into every project, every family, every life we have the privilege to touch." Harrison, who was standing beside Caleb, added, "Mum, thank you for forgiving me, for taking me back, for teaching me how to be a father. You transformed my life when you gave me a second chance, and you spent your last years showing me how to give second chances to others. Your son promises that the Fresh Start Foundation will continue to be a place where families find and rebuild themselves." After the funeral, when the family was gathered at home, Caleb made a decision that surprised Harrison. "Dad, I want to accelerate our projects. I want New Horizons Construction to build its first housing village this year, not next year." "Caleb, don't make important decisions when you're emotional. Grief can affect our judgment." "It's not grief, Dad. It's clarity. Grandma died knowing we would continue her work. She lived to see it. Now we have to honor that. Megan, who had moved into the house to help during Evelyn's last months, supported Caleb. Harrison, I think Caleb is right. Evelyn always said that when we know we're doing the right thing, there's no reason to wait. Harrison looked around the house that had become a home for an unconventional but deeply united family. He looked at Caleb, now a determined young man focused on making a difference in the world. He looked at Megan, who had become a daughter of the heart to the family. Then let's accelerate. Let's build the housing village. Let's expand the foundation. Let's do everything Evelyn dreamed of seeing happen. And we'll do one more thing, Caleb added. We'll name the village Evelyn Village. Perfect, Harrison agreed. 6 months after Evelyn's death, Evelyn Village was being inaugurated. 20 simple but beautiful houses, with 2 bedrooms each, intended for low-income families who had gone through the Fresh Start Foundation's support program. The first family to move in was Martha and Justin, whose reconciliation had been mediated years earlier. Justin, now in his 2nd year of engineering on a full scholarship, had helped Caleb with the architectural design of the houses. "Sir Harrison, I'll never be able to thank you enough," said Martha during the key handover ceremony. "You not only saved my family, but now you're giving us a real home. Martha, you've been part of our family for years. This isn't a favor, it's care between people who love each other." During the inauguration, Caleb gave an emotional speech. "This village represents more than 20 houses. It represents 20 fresh starts, 20 opportunities, 20 families who can settle down and dream of better futures. Every house here was designed not just to shelter bodies, but to nurture dreams. There's space for children to study, for families to gather, for lives to be rebuilt. I dedicate this project to the memory of my grandmother, Evelyn, who taught me that a home isn't made of bricks, but of love, and to my father, Harrison, who taught me that building houses is building hope." After the ceremony, Harrison and Caleb walked through the streets of the new village, watching the families organizing their homes, children playing in the small yards, adults planning gardens and future improvements. "Dad, look at what we managed to do," said Caleb, clearly proud. "What you managed to do, Caleb. The idea was yours. The project was yours. The determination was yours." "No, Dad. None of this would exist if one day you hadn't had the courage to listen to a street kid shouting the truth in a cemetery. And that street kid wouldn't have shouted if he hadn't met a lady at the county nursing home who needed company. And that lady wouldn't have been at the county nursing home if she didn't have a son who, despite all his mistakes, paid for her to have a roof and food." Harrison laughed at his son's circular logic. "Are you trying to say everything was destined to happen? I'm trying to say that sometimes the bad things that happen in life are just the path for much better things to happen." 2 years after the inauguration of Evelyn Village, Caleb and Megan announced their engagement. The proposal happened in one of the village houses during a community party. "I wanted to ask Megan to marry me in a place that represented everything we believe in," Caleb explained to Harrison. "This place represents family, fresh starts, hope. It's the perfect place to start our own family." The wedding was held in the garden of the Fresh Start Foundation, with all the families who had been helped over the years present. Harrison was Caleb's best man, and Martha was Megan's matron of honor. During the ceremony, Caleb made vows that moved everyone present. "Megan, you met me when I was still learning to be a son, a grandson, a part of a family. Now I want to learn to be a husband, a father, a life partner. I promise to build with you not just our house but our home, our family, our dreams." Megan, in her vows, spoke directly to Harrison as well. "Caleb, I promise to love you and honor the extraordinary family you've given me. Harrison, thank you for accepting me as a daughter and for teaching me that paternal love can be a choice, not just biology." After the ceremony, during the party, Harrison reflected on all the events of the last 8 years. From an empty businessman disconnected from his family, he had become a proud father, a loving father-in-law, and the manager of an organization that had already impacted hundreds of families. "Sir Harrison," said one of the children from the foundation, tugging on his clothes, "when I grow up, can I work with you and Caleb?" "Of course you can, my dear. But first you study hard, graduate, and then you yourself will build things even better than ours." "Do you really think so?" I'm certain. Every generation can do better than the previous one if given the opportunity and support. During Caleb and Megan's honeymoon, Harrison began working on his next project, writing a book about family reconstruction and second chances. He wanted to document not only his own experience, but the stories of all the families he had helped over the years. Every family has its own story of pain and overcoming, he wrote in the first chapter. But they all share something in common, the potential for a fresh start, as long as they have the courage to face the truth and the will to build something better. When Caleb and Megan returned from their honeymoon, they found Harrison finishing the first draft of the book. "Dad, you wrote an entire book while we were away." "Not the entire thing, Caleb, but I started it. I think our story needs to be told. It might inspire other families not to give up on each other." Megan read a few chapters and was moved. "Harrison, this could really help a lot of people. You should look for a publisher." "I don't know if it's good enough for that." "Dad, you've spent the last few years giving life-changing talks. Of course you're good enough to write a book." The book Second Chances, How a Shout in the Cemetery Saved 3 Lives, was published a year later and became an unexpected success. Harrison began receiving invitations to speak in other states, other cities, about family reconstruction and social responsibility. "Dad, you've become a famous author," Caleb joked. "I'm not famous. I'm just someone who was lucky enough to get a second chance and wants to help others get theirs too." During one of the talks in New York, Harrison met Diane, a 45-year-old psychologist who worked with family therapy. She had lost her husband 2 years prior and was raising a teenage son alone. "Your story touched me deeply," Diane said after the talk, "especially the part about it never being too late to start over." "Thank you. It's always good to know the experiences we've lived through can help others." "May I ask a personal question? Did you find someone to share your life with after the divorce?" The question caught Harrison by surprise, but he realized Diane wasn't just being curious. There was genuine interest in her voice. "No. I've been focused on the family I've built, on the social work we've developed, but I admit I sometimes miss having a partner. If you come to New York again, would you like to have dinner with me? No pressure, just to continue talking about family and second chances." Harrison accepted the invitation, and in the following months he developed a deep friendship with Diane. She visited Chicago several times, met Caleb and Megan, was impressed with the Foundation's work, and gradually became part of the extended family. "Dad, are you in love with Diane?" Caleb asked during a Sunday lunch where Diane was present. "Caleb," Megan scolded, "what kind of question is that?" "No, it's all right," said Harrison, smiling. "And yes, Caleb, I think I am in love with Diane." "That's good," Caleb replied. "Grandma always said you should find someone to love and be loved by." Diane, who had heard everything, was moved. "And may I confess that I'm in love too?" "Of course you may," said Megan, standing up to hug Diane. "Welcome officially to our crazy family." Harrison and Diane got married 2 years later, in a simple but meaningful ceremony in the Foundation's garden. Diane's teenage son Nathan quickly adapted to the new family, especially after Caleb offered to help him with his studies and include him in the Foundation's activities. "Now we're an even bigger family," Caleb observed on the wedding day, "and even stronger." In the following years, the family continued to grow and impact the community. Caleb and Megan had 2 children, Evelyn and Harrison Jr. Diane brought her psychology experience to strengthen the Foundation's work. Nathan decided to study social work to continue the family's mission. New Horizons construction expanded to other cities, always maintaining its focus on quality affordable housing. The Fresh Start Foundation became a national reference in family mediation and care for vulnerable children. 10 years after that transformative day at the cemetery, Harrison was in his office at the Foundation when he received an unexpected call. "Hello, Sir Harrison. This is Sterling." Harrison fell silent for a few seconds, recognizing the voice of the former administrator of the county nursing home. "Sterling, what do you want?" "Sir Harrison, I got out of prison 6 months ago. I'm trying to start my life over, and I wanted to ask for forgiveness and ask if maybe there was a place for me at your foundation." The irony of the situation was not lost on Harrison. The man who had caused so much suffering was now asking for help to restart his own life. "Sterling, do you understand what you did was terrible, that you caused unnecessary suffering for many families?" "I understand, sir. I understand perfectly. And I don't expect forgiveness, I just hope, for a chance to do something useful with the rest of my life." Harrison thought of the promise he had made to Evelyn about giving second chances, about never giving up on anyone. "Sterling, I'll speak with the Foundation's team. If they agree, you can start as a volunteer doing manual labor, with no direct contact with families. It will be a long probationary period, and any slip-up will mean immediate dismissal." "Sir Harrison, thank you. Thank you for giving me a chance I don't deserve." When he told Caleb and Diane about the call, their reactions were different. "Dad, are you sure about this?" asked Caleb. "That man lied to our family for years." "That's exactly why, Caleb. If our mission is truly about second chances, it needs to apply even to those who have wronged us. Evelyn always said that forgiving isn't forgetting, it's choosing not to let the past determine the future." Diane, with her experience in psychology, supported the decision. "Harrison, people can change when they find real motivation to change. If Sterling is sincerely remorseful, perhaps we can help him become a better person." Sterling worked at the Foundation for 3 years, always discreet, always dedicated, gradually earning the team's trust. He never had direct contact with the families they served, but his work behind the scenes was crucial to keeping the organization running. At the end of the 3rd year, he asked for a private conversation with Harrison. "Sir Harrison, I want to thank you for these years. You gave me more than I deserved. Dignity, purpose, a way to contribute to fixing some of the harm I caused. You earned that, Sterling, with honest work and dedication. I want to do one thing. I have a small inheritance my mother left me. It's not much, but I want to donate all of it to the Foundation. It's the least I can do." "Sterling, you don't have to." "I need to, sir. I need to for my own peace. And I want to ask one more thing. When I die, I want to be buried in the municipal cemetery, in the simplest plot available, with a plaque that says only, 'Here lies someone who learned too late that family is sacred.'" Harrison was moved by the request. Sterling had genuinely transformed, and his transformation was proof that people really can change when they find proper motivation and support. 15 years after the cry at the cemetery, Harrison was preparing a special lecture. He had been invited to speak at the same university where Caleb had studied, but this time as the keynote speaker at the graduation for the new engineers. Caleb, now 27 and a full partner at New Horizons Construction, was in the audience with Megan and their children. Diane was beside him, proud of the husband who had become not only a successful businessman, but a benchmark for social responsibility. "Young engineers," Harrison began, "today you are receiving a diploma that gives you power. The power to build, to create, to transform spaces and lives. The question I want to leave you with is, how will you use that power? 15 years ago, I was a businessman who built buildings but destroyed relationships, who accumulated material possessions but lost opportunities to make a real difference in people's lives. A 12-year-old boy changed my perspective by shouting a truth in a cemetery. Since then, I've learned that our professional success only has value if it contributes to the human success of others. You can choose to build only for those who can pay a lot, or you can choose to build for those who need it most. You can choose projects that impress architecture magazines, or projects that transform communities. I'm not saying you should renounce profit or recognition. I'm saying you can have both, as long as you keep the human impact of your work as the priority." At the end of the lecture during the Q&A period, a young engineer asked, "Professor Harrison, how do we know when we're making the right decisions in life?" Harrison looked at Caleb in the audience before answering. "When you can sleep in peace knowing your choices have made someone else's life better, when you can look at the people you love and know you've been true to the values that really matter, when you understand that success isn't what you achieve for yourself, but what you build for others. And sometimes, when a 12-year-old boy has the courage to shout the truth you need to hear, even if that truth changes your life completely." The audience applauded, many with tears in their eyes, moved by Harrison's honesty and vulnerability. After the ceremony, Caleb approached his father. "Dad, thank you." "For what, Caleb?" "For listening to me that day at the cemetery. For changing your life so I could change mine. For teaching me that family is about choice, love, and dedication." Harrison hugged Caleb, feeling the same intense paternal pride he'd felt since the first day the street kid became his son. "Caleb, thank you. For having courage when I didn't. For shouting the truth when everyone preferred silence. For teaching me how to be a father, how to be a man, how to be useful in the world. And now, Dad, what are our next projects?" "Now we'll keep doing what we've always done. Building homes, rebuilding families, giving second chances. And we'll teach your children to do the same." "Forever?" "Forever, Caleb. This is our legacy. This is our family." That night at home, Harrison reflected on the extraordinary journey of the last 15 years. From an empty man organizing the funeral of a mother who wasn't dead, he had become the leader of a family that impacted hundreds of other families. Caleb, from a street kid with no prospects, had become an engineer, husband, father, and social entrepreneur. Diane had found a new family after losing her first husband. Nathan was preparing to continue the social work. The grandchildren were growing up surrounded by love and solid values. But more than anything, Harrison had learned that the most valuable life isn't the one that accumulates the most possessions, but the one that distributes the most love. That true success isn't measured in money or prestige, but in how many lives we manage to touch positively. And it had all started with a desperate shout in a cemetery. "Your mother is alive. I saw her at the county nursing home." A shout that saved not just one family, but transformed that rescue into a life mission to save other families. A shout that proved that sometimes the most important truths are shouted by the most unlikely voices, at the most unexpected moments, in the most inappropriate places. A shout that changed 3 lives, and through those 3 lives changed hundreds of others. A shout that echoed for 15 years and would continue echoing for generations, in the form of houses built, families reunited, children welcomed, and second chances offered. A cry that proved courage knows no age, love knows no bounds, and it's never too late for a fresh start. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of overcoming and new beginnings. Do you believe Harrison made the right decisions? Have you ever experienced a situation where a hard truth changed your life for the better? Share your opinion in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective on second chances and family rebuilding. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories.